Let's see. Okay. Okay, I think we should just carry on, right? So, Shami, do you want to say so, Shami or Sheikh? So, what's your current experience with Azure? I know Sheikh just finished his certification exam, so there's a lot of expectation there. So, so what's your current level of exposure to Azure? What's your current level of knowledge? I know Shami also, you're heavily involved with Office 365, right? Hmm? I can hear anything. I know you can you still hear me? Because I can't hear anything from you now.
I can hear you guys. Can you hear me?
Ah, yeah, I can hear you clearly. Yeah, nice. So what's your current level of exposure like to Azure, your current level of understanding with Azure?
Yeah, sure. So I would say that it's a foundational knowledge
Hmm.
of Azure. So I'm the role that I play in the company I work for now is really looking at how we can utilize cloud services and Azure.
Yeah,
So we have some dev environments configured
yeah.
in Azure. I understand the differences between the ASM portal and the ARM portal,
Hmm.
and how what the benefits it brings to Nepal.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but
Hmm.
my goal is that I want to be in the next, in fact, even probably next 2 months to be able to sit the 533 exam. That's my goal.
Nice, nice, excellent. Thanks very much for that. And what about you, Sheikh? If you can, if your mic is working, you may need to unmute yourself. And so Sheikh, you may need to unmute yourself because you're currently muted. So just a quick overview of your current experience with Azure, your current understanding on Azure. If you got no mic, you can type so we know to move. Or Claude, can you hear me, Claude?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Ah,
Sorry, guys, I was having some connectivity issues on my side.
okay, that's okay. Yeah. So we're just doing brief introduction to
Hey, hi.
know where we are.
My name is Sheikh. I'm sorry.
No,
Sorry
it's all
to
right.
disturb.
It's all right. Yeah. Okay, carry on,
I,
Sheikh.
ju- I just I just got the mic on. Like I got another system.
Yeah.
Hi guys, how are you?
Yeah. Very good. Thanks. Very good. And
Yeah,
you?
Good,
yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
yeah. Okay. Sorry for the delay.
So what's
Yeah,
your
going on.
current? Yeah. Carry on. Sorry.
Yeah, I was working as an IT systems engineer here in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
I recently finished Azure certification 7533. I'm so excited about that.
Yeah.
It was a excellent experience to the public cloud actually.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a single administrator in our small office, so I implemented also Azure storage, blob storage, and all those stuff. So
Nice.
yeah, we switched over. Right now, working on backup, Azure backup. So I convinced my boss to go for a subscription. We have a university subscription, so developer program benefit. It's called.
Yeah.
So they will give $100 a month.
Yep.
Storage doesn't take that much, so they give 5 TB, 5 TBs, so it's not a problem as of now.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, it's going on. So that motivated me to take part into Azure, and I'm going to take the 534.
Yeah. Excellent.
Okay.
Excellent. I mean, all the best with that. That's
Thank
very
you.
nice. Yeah. Sorry.
Thank you.
And Claudia, yeah, carry on.
Hi, so I'm Claude. I'm based in the Washington, D.C. area,
Mhm.
and I'm a tier 2 engineer, so escalation for a mid-sized MSP here in the D.C. area.
Yep.
So we use a little bit of Azure as far as connecting maybe to the 365 environment,
Mhm.
setting up profiles, creating offboarding accounts, onboarding accounts. So that's pretty much the current limit of my experience.
Mhm. Nice. Yeah. That's still very good. Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So the main goal, I'm not sure. I know Shami has been involved in like our previous hangout, but the main goal of this group is to bring administrators together and to basically learn from one another and to make things as simple as possible. So there's no pressure to super impress anyone. You know, we can do that at work. We can impress the people at work, but the whole
Yeah.
point here is just to learn from one another and to make it as simple and as clear as possible. In other words, if I don't understand something, I'm not ashamed to say, you know what, Sheik's got experience with Azure storage. So talk to me about, how you currently work with Azure storage and all that stuff. And if I've got more experience with Azure networking, which I do, so you can say, oh, I understand Azure storage, but Azure networking, I'm not sure my way around it. Or maybe Shami is like, I've got experience in Azure AD and stuff like, and you get the point. So that's like the whole point of the group. And even though we're going to try to follow a structure, the structure that we'll be following is the official Microsoft course structure for 7533. We're going to follow the official structure, but still we can go out of that structure at any time. So the whole point is that we come out of this with proper understanding. We understand what's going on. We know what's going on. So the first place that we'll probably start with, because this entire module, it's called Introduction to Azure. If you look at the official Microsoft course, it's called Introduction to Azure. And what we're supposed to be discussing are things like cloud technology overview of Azure, managing Azure with Azure Portal, managing Azure with Windows PowerShell, things like overview of Azure Resource Manager and Azure Management Services. But I think let's start with one that's much more relevant to us. So if I say to you, because we all have at least a basic understanding of what Azure is or what Azure does, but if I say to you, or let's even go back a bit. So what's your own basic understanding? So Shami, you're an IT engineer. What's your understanding of what Azure is, what Azure does, what can Azure do for like an organization? Just a brief overview of your own understanding.
So my understanding is that Azure is a platform where you can have public compute services, and they could also be hybrid services, and they can range from infrastructure as a service, software as a service, or platform as a service.
Yeah, excellent.
What is your office?
Yeah, that's absolutely excellent. That's absolutely excellent. So you have it. So it's a place where we can go and have access to all the different services that you've mentioned. Um, Infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service. But again, because we're in a group where you're trying to make things simple, let's try to break that down. What does it mean when we say infrastructure as a service? What does it mean when we say platform as a service? What does it mean when we say software as a service? So, Claudia, do you want to answer that?
Yes. So I'm assuming when we say software as a service or hardware as a service, we're referring to providing, I'm assuming, appliances over the cloud in this case, and the goal, I guess, is to make the services easily accessible with personal devices, not necessarily. How can I phrase it? I think that the goal is to actually to allow more flexibility and not limit the user to I guess a closed environment.
Yep. Can you see my screen? Yep. I guess one of the main things to mention is that this is one of the things that sometimes, as IT engineers, we have like these different terms, but it's breaking down those terms and then making them have a meaning. So if I say infrastructure as a service, IaaS, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. In other words, what we mean is this: if we strip away all the terminologies and strip away all the complexities around Azure, all we have in the backend are data centers that are full of servers. So can you see my screen that I'm sharing? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So all we have in the backend on Azure, strip away all the terminologies and everything. Everything all comes down to there are data centers, physical data centers in locations around the world that have very powerful servers and lots of them running on them. Eventually, everything Azure is data center and servers running in them. And whatever service you want to carry on, sorry.
I'm sorry, that too Hyper-V, we have to mention that.
Yeah,
It's all in Hyper-V platform. I heard that, right?
yeah, absolutely correct. So Shake is absolutely right. So it's all running on the Hyper-V. So it's not it's not running VMware vSphere. It's not running
Yeah.
VMware vSphere. It's running Hyper-V.
Usually we think about a collection of computers, collection of networks. So basically they set forth that everything is Hyper-V platform.
Yeah.
So that's amazing.
Yeah, it is. It is. And here's one interesting thing is that they've got do you know Server 2016 now supports nested virtualization. So
That's good.
yeah, because Hyper-V is currently sorry, Azure is currently running on Server 2012 out to Hyper-V. That's what it's currently running on the servers. When talking about the network, on the servers running on Azure, they're currently running Server 2012 out to Hyper-V. But Server 2016 Hyper-V, if you look at some of the new features that it supports nested virtualization. What that means is that you can have a virtual machine inside another virtual machine. And very soon, hopefully, they will start upgrading Azure to start running on Server 2016 Hyper-V. And I'm not sure if this is where they're taking it, but my hope is that what will probably happen in the future is that you can have an Hyper-V host on premises and you can fail over the entire host into a virtual machine on Azure. Because now you can run a virtual machine, you can run an hypervisor inside a virtual machine. Does that make sense?
Nice.
Or what do you think? Do you think that's where they're taking it? Do you think? Because why would
Yeah, I
they?
mean, hypervisor. VMware has that facility, but in 2016 they have come up with this to run the hypervisor inside a virtual machine.
Yeah.
Using a real hardware. They said, level 0.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's where they're taking it? I mean, what's your thought, Shami and Claude also? So what's your thought? Do you think where they're taking that new feature of nested virtualization is that you can have a host on your on-prem and you can fail it into a virtual machine on Azure? I think that's where they're taking it, in my own opinion.
Yeah, that's where I think it's Gavin is trying to simplify.
I think so. Yes, I think so too. Because you look at in most IT companies these days, they're embracing bring your own devices.
Yep.
So it would only make sense to have the backend infrastructure to support that belief or this new culture as well.
Yeah. Where you don't have to,
I believe that's the direction.
Exactly. Where you don't have to worry, where you can basically go, rather than saying you're provisioning VMs, you can provision hosts. Well, we'll see what happens when they go with that. So Sheik's absolutely right. So that's strip away everything in Azure, and you come at the end of it, you come to servers and switches and routers and fiber connections. That's all that's in the backend. Now, when we say something like infrastructure as a service, infrastructure as a service is the most engaging part of the services that Azure provides. What does that mean? So Azure as a whole, again, in the backend, it's all data centers with powerful servers and powerful routers and switches running in them. So what you can do is go to the Azure portal or go to Microsoft, so to speak, and say, hey, I need a virtual machine. I need a machine. I want the machine to have this amount of storage, this amount of IOPS in the storage. I want it to have this amount of memory, and you can provision the virtual machine. Now, when you provision this virtual machine, on Azure, it's running inside an Hyper-V host on Azure. That virtual machine becomes your responsibility. In other words, you are responsible for taking care of the operating system. You are responsible for taking care of the application that you've installed on the operating system. So everything that has to do with the OS and the application installed on it, you are responsible for that. That is infrastructure as a service. On the other hand, what Microsoft has done also is they have this group of servers running in a data center also that Microsoft has gone will install Server 2012. Let's just use an illustration. Server 2012 Auto on the server will install Microsoft SQL on this server, right? And will now provision a web page or a web portal so that whenever you want to provision a database, you don't have to get a machine, install Server 2012, install Microsoft SQL. You can just go do a few right clicks and go, I want to provision a database. Let me show you what I mean. I've got a login into my Azure, and close this one. I've got a login into my Azure portal now. And if I go to my Azure portal, and let's go portal.azure.com. Okay, and show you what I mean. So here's what we mean in the end. So logging into this one now. If I want to provision a database on Azure, there are two methods that I can use. I can either go to Azure and I go to new, and I go new here, and then I go to new, and I say new compute, and I select a virtual machine. So I provision a virtual machine, I go ahead and install SQL on it, and then I can provision my databases on it. That's one way. Another way is this. Another way is I can go here and go to new, and rather than compute, I can go to storage and go to and go here and go on the, or I can just type in here and type SQL or SQL databases, and I can go hard, and I can just provision a database without provisioning the machine. That is platform as a service. So in other words, infrastructure as a service, you're responsible for the OS, you're responsible for the application. Platform as a service, now there's a level of abstraction. I'm no longer responsible for the OS. I'm not responsible for the OS. All I'm responsible for is my own the application, or how do I put it? I won't say application, or the component are the things I'm responsible for. I'm no longer responsible for the OS. Yeah, I'm sorry, what did you say?
Upgrades. You're not responsible for the updates or upgrades or patches, or they will take care.
Exactly. Absolutely. No need for me to worry about the OS anymore. So Sheikh is right. But then all I'm worried about, all I need to care about is my SQL database. So Microsoft will take care of all that in the back end. I just take care of my own SQL database. And it's the same way. If you want to provision a web server that you want to run a website on Azure, there are two ways. Again, you can go to provision a virtual machine, provision the virtual machine, server 2016, install IaaS on it, and start managing your web page. Or you can go to Azure, if I bring that up again, or you can go to Azure and search for web apps or app services, it's called now. And under app services, I can go to hard and I can select, I just want a web app. And now I can provision a web page without having to, I can provision a website, sorry, without having to provision a virtual machine or that. That is application, that is in platform as a service. Now, does that make sense now? Much more sense, Claudia. Does it make much more sense? Or what do you think? Does it make much more sense? What do you think, guys? What's your thoughts? Or what do you want to add anything? Is there something that's missing?
I think you're spot on, David.
Yep. Is it much more clearer in terms of what difference between platform as a service and infrastructure as a service?
Yes, yeah. So infrastructure as a service is that you manage um, everything in terms of they provide you a piece of tin,
Yeah,
and then you are managing every aspect of that piece of tin.
yeah,
That means the operating system, the Windows patches, the application itself. Then you have the next level,
mhm,
which, like you said, was platform as a service.
yeah,
And they are managing the actual underlying tin,
mhm,
the Windows updates for you that OSA actually runs on.
yeah,
What you get is a particular application as such that you would manage. So in this instance, it could be, let's say, a website. So it would be you wouldn't have access to IIS
yeah,
to configure the website in, but you would have access to a portal, a page where you can conduct certain activities which will build a website as such.
excellent.
So and that would go the same for database as a service,
Yeah,
where you would get a database. You wouldn't have access to the SQL Management Studio itself
mhm,
to provision new databases, but you would have access to a pane through the portal of
yeah,
you can add information into that database.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, carry on. And typically, I'm not sure what my own understanding of this is that typically on Azure, infrastructure as a service um, is actually if you want to provision, so it depends on the way you use it. But if you want to just do a side-by-side comparison, infrastructure as a service is more expensive than platform as a service. You actually be paying more if you were to go and say, I want to provision my own machine, I want to be the one to take care of it. So you not only be working more, you'll be paying more than if you go for the service if it exists as platform as a service. And then,
Yeah,
yeah, carry on, sorry.
yeah, but and it totally it makes sense because infrastructure as a service, you are assigning a virtual machine or storage or whatever option to yourself. Whereas platform as a service, you are running, let's say, a website or a database on a particular virtual machine, which has multiple other databases and websites on for other customers. So you're sharing that
Mhm.
with a lot more
Yeah,
people
yeah,
in
excellent.
kind of ratio, and that means that
That's
the
absolutely right.
price
Yeah,
is
Yeah,
more
that's right.
compelling for you.
yeah, that's absolutely right. Somebody wanted to say something else. Was that Shake or was that Claude?
Yeah, usually, as Shami said,
Mm,
it was a excellent compared to the previous old good old days. Like I log into GoDaddy and provision FTP
mm,
and install WordPress and connect it to the SQL and
yep,
make it as a website. Now with a single click, without knowing anything, just like that, I can provision a website and that too a free app.
yep,
So that
absolutely.
is a that is an awesome.
Yep,
And installation of Windows, oh no, within 10 seconds, 15 seconds we can get up the server running and then we can do things.
yep,
That is
absolutely.
great.
Yep. Claudia, you were saying something.
Yes, I also like the fact that you could actually pause part of your session, a part of your setup, and let's say you're moving from one place to another, you can start installing the server and pause it at a certain point, move on to a completely different computer or network, log back into your Azure platform, and just proceed or continue with the process. So
Yeah,
there's really no uh, interruption per se, that you experience, when using Azure
mm.
as well.
Are you talking referring to what they call broad network access? In other words, you can access it from anywhere, and you can
Hello,
just do hello. Can you hear me?
I keep exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yes,
yeah.
my connection keeps going in and out, so sorry about that.
Yeah, I know it's all right. Okay, so now moving on to the next part of this module that we have to understand. So this one is very, very important. It's very, very vital. And the topic is understanding Azure data centers. This is very important because as engineers, if we're going to be having our data or our work somewhere, we want we want to understand as much as possible about that infrastructure, even though we're not in control of it, but we want to understand it. So understanding Azure data center, or as I'll put it, Azure from a physical perspective. Because it's always important. I always find it helpful to always take a step back, because sometimes we can get caught up in like the old Azure terminology and the bombardment of marketing phrases and all that, that we don't go back and go, okay, hold on. At the end of everything, we're referring to physical servers with physical switches and physical routers sitting in a location somewhere in the world. That's what we're talking about at the end of the day. There's a huge level of programming and application with the Azure stack that's controlling everything. But at the end of it, that's what we're talking about. So understanding Azure data centers. So typically, in Azure, you've got these different terminologies when you're talking about Azure from a physical perspective. You have geos, you have regions, you have locations, you have data centers. And all these have different significance. So what's your own current understanding of geos? So who wants to go first for that? Who wants to go for geos? What's your current understanding of geos? Sheikh, you want to go for that? Yeah,
Geographical location.
absolutely. Geographical location. Yeah, carry on.
So, this is sometimes where I get confused, and it seems like your is based on. So underneath that, you've got regions as well, and as it is geographical locations, I think it's based on 3 different areas. So you have the America side, then you have Europe and Asia, and don't quote me on this, and that's why I think it's something that we should just go and check. Then underneath that, you have sorry, I'll let anyone else answer that question.
Right. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Good.
Yeah. Carry on, Sheikh.
Yeah, geographical locations or regions. We don't have one in Saudi, but we have. I can see the Azure regions, like it's vastly spreaded in US, and the physical data locations. I mean, the physical data location on the cloud, which is there in Asia, Europe, US. So these are the Azure trust centers. By the way, we call it the data centers, which are there.
Yeah. So here's one thing that, because I know a lot of people find this confusing. So if I go to Azure now and I type in Azure regions, let's go Azure regions.
Usually we will
if I type,
see to. I'm sorry.
no, it's all right. Let's say Azure locations, and we can see where the data centers are on Azure. But yeah, you go and you see Azure regions. Okay. So what about the geos? What are we referring to when we talk about the geos? Because here, Microsoft is using terminology Azure regions. So what do we mean? So what's the difference? I guess the question will be, what's the difference between geos? Because here we have the regions here, right? There are currently 30 regions in the world. But where does geo come into here?
Can I answer that, David?
Yeah, yes, please.
Would geo apply to maybe continental location?
You're absolutely right. Yeah, it is. It is. So you've got.
So I'm assuming that we got the Americans region and the European, then the Asian,
So I'm
based on
carry
the
on.
map, right?
So I'm even trying to look for like where they've got the information about where the current what they consider geos. Because what happens also is that, for example, you go to provision something on Azure. One of the first questions that you get asked is, where's the location that you want to provision this service? So you select the location that you want to provision that service. But when you're also now referring to something like storage, you get some options like, do you want locally redundant storage or do you want geo redundant storage? They're not saying regionally redundant storage. I'm not sure if does that make sense. They're saying, do you want geo redundant storage or do you want locally redundant storage? And it's good to now understand when they're talking about geo, what are they talking about? What are they talking about? Because what that could mean legal implications for you, right? As an IT administrator. For example, if you are working like in a company in Germany, sorry, where the data laws, where data must be stored within the country. So you've got to be careful when they're talking about geos for you not to go select, yeah, I want geo replication and get your data out of compliance and stuff like that. So I'm not sure. Does anyone have much more information on this, on the Azure geos? I'm trying to look for it on the website.
It seems what my understanding is, we have when we talk about local data centers, so we talk about, like, we have a provision for DRS, disaster recovery system. So usually that will be through cable, and that will be not in the same place. For example, if I have um, in my data center in East US, I will be having the DRS, the disaster recovery, in the West US. That's a little bit far away. So as per Azure, what they say is our whatever we provision will be, I think 3 times. If it is LRS, local redundant, it will be kept multiplied by 3 times, 3 clones, and it will be kept. Whereas it's geo, it will be kept in a different location where it will be safe. For example, if one zone is affected, for data center is affected, or rack is affected, or the another, it will be multiplied into 6 clones, and it will be put in to a completely different zone. So just for a safer side, I think it's disaster recovery comes into place.
Yeah.
This is my understanding.
Yeah. Can you see my screen?
Yeah. Private. Yeah. What is that? Page?
This one. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can see Geo, Asia Pacific, region, this one. So you have the regions which are under the geos. So
no, we can see only Paint app, I think.
Oh, you can't see anything that I copied there. Oh, okay. Maybe I should stop. Let me stop screen sharing. Yeah. Let me stop screen sharing and then start it again. So let's go stop screen sharing, and then let's start screen sharing again. Sorry.
Now I can see Azure Architect.
Yeah, it probably just froze. Can you see now? Can you see now? Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Can you? Can you show me and shake? Can you see my screen?
No, it's black.
It's
dark.
It's fine for me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
It's good.
So maybe there's a delay.
Go ahead then.
Maybe there's a delay, shake.
Okay. No problem. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Say I keep breaking up. I'm not sure
why.
Yeah,
I got it.
Got it. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. So so you can see here you got Geo, Asia Pacific region, Asia Pacific East, and then the location of the data center. And then you go. So basically, you have Geo, which is you have Asia Pacific. You have. So let's cut this. You have Australia. You have South America. You have Europe. You have Japan. You have United States, and that's it. So basically, those are the geos that you have. And then under geos, you have regions. So when you're talking about geo redundancy, they're talking about your data will be spread not only across the same region. So it's not only going to be in Asia Pacific. It will be spread. It will be spread across other regions, maybe within the same geographical location. Or Sheikh, is that correct?
What you said, is it not is ZRS, zone redundant?
No, geo. So not zone, just the geo redundancy. So geo redundancy. So whenever you see geo redundancy, what it simply means is that your data will be spread not only. So let's say you pick you're deploying your service in Asia Pacific East. What that means is that your data could be living in any of these regions. So when they say geo redundancy, it means that they could replicate your data to Beijing, China, Shanghai, China, or Asia Pacific East. And the same thing for when you're referring to Europe. So if they say if you're going for geo redundant storage and you're in Europe, so they have UK North and UK West now, I think. So that means your data could be in Europe West, it could be in Europe North, it could be in UK North, it could be in UK South. Does that make sense?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. And Shami, does that make sense? Is that clear, or do you have questions about that on Claudia?
I think I understand it now.
Yeah. And Claudia, do you understand it? Is it clearer now?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So basically that's like what, so you got the geos, and then you got the geos, how many of them? So let's go 1 minute. Let's just bring this one up so I can count the number of geos that we've got. So geos, we've got United States, we got Japan, we got Europe, we got South America, we got Australia, and we got Asia Pacific. That means we have 5 geographical regions. And then under the geos, then we got the regions. So whenever you select anything that is geo-redundant, it means your data could be anywhere within that geographical location. So that means Asia Pacific geo has 4 regions. So if you pick Asia Pacific and then you pick geo redundancy, so what that means is that your data could be in any of these 4 regions. So you have to pay attention to that when you're doing any deployment, if you have any legal requirements. Okay, and of course we know where we can always go on the website. They keep adding to them. These are where the actual physical data centers, where the regions are, and then the location. So we have geo, we have region, and location. So region doesn't mean you have multiple data centers. Region could mean you have multiple data centers. So for example, East US region has 2 data centers. Central US region has only 1 data center. North US region has only 1 data center. And if you keep going down,
So, David, I think one thing is though
yeah,
that it doesn't necessarily mean it only has one data center. So the location doesn't mean it has one data center. It could have multiple data centers within that location.
is it?
That's my understanding, is that a location is not just one data center. It can have multiple data centers within that location.
So yeah, if that's so you absolutely could be right. That was not my own understanding, because then I was thinking, so why would they have East US 2? Why not just say we've got East US, and East US we have multiple data centers in Virginia? Why say we have East US and Virginia, East US 2, Virginia?
So I'm just going to try to find an article which
Yeah.
talks about locations. So I think it was one which is around storage, which is a pretty good one, and it talks about local, like Sheikh was saying before, local redundant storage and zone redundant storage and geo redundant. And I think on the local redundant storage, apparent there is talking about saying, okay, based on that location, but it means that it's not just it means that it might have multiple copies in the same
Data center.
location, but it'll be across multiple data centers. I'll find that in the
What's your understanding of that, Sheikh or Claudia? What's your understanding of that? Because my own understanding of that is you've got, for example, you've got this region. So because they've got East US, so there's East US region, and East US region has a data center in Virginia. And we have East US region again as a data center in Virginia, which means the East US region has 2 data centers. Or what's your understanding of that, Sheikh? Why Shamil looked up the article? Yeah.
Yeah, I think what Shami said might be correct,
Okay.
because we don't know the clear picture of it. But I am from India,
Mhm.
and from South India, that is Chennai. You can see that Asia Pacific, South India, Chennai, that is the place.
Yeah.
So there I know Microsoft, my friends on all work with nearby companies. So they have one building.
Mhm.
So they didn't mention anything called Azure data center or that,
Mhm.
but they have the one dedicated building for it,
Yeah.
but not different buildings. That means the data center should be inside that building. That was my understanding.
Mhm.
So in compared to Asia, they have in India only three. So in US, as Shami said, it might be spread across each street. I don't know.
So you're thinking
Yeah.
that, okay, so maybe even if they say just Virginia here, they could,
Mm.
so Virginia could mean multiple data centers in Virginia.
Could be. Yeah, could be.
Okay.
Because maybe in Virginia they will have multiple data centers spread out. Everything might be connected through express route, or which we don't know. We have to see some data sheets from Azure so that we can
Yeah.
come to a
Yeah.
conclusion. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm interested in the article that you mentioned, Shami, so that I can have a look at that. Because my own thought is, for example, you can see here where they've got Japan East, and Japan East, they've said we've got data center in
Two cities.
Tokyo, we've got data center
Okay.
in here. So what I'm trying to understand, okay, yeah. So but we'll wait for Shami. Shami will post that article to us, then that will help clarify our understanding about that. Okay, so that's the next one. So it's interesting, right? One of the reasons why we need to have this kind of, because no one absolutely understands everything about Azure. There are some areas that could be confusing, but then it's good when we discuss them, we can clarify them, and it becomes more clearer to all of us and stuff. Okay, so we already talked a little bit. So while Shami is looking for that, let's move to the next one. And Shami, once you find it, just let us know so we can review that together. Um, can you still hear me, guys? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if
Yes, I
I.
Yes.
can
Ah,
hear
okay,
you.
yeah,
Yes,
good.
I can
Okay,
hear
so now if we go to for understanding Azure services, which we already talked about, many of that we've already talked about things like infrastructure as a service. Um, we already talked about platform as a service and um, and software as a service. So actually, we didn't really talk that much about software as a service. So what would be the difference between software as a service and platform as a service? We don't really need to go because again, this is not something that will really help us when we're at work. They won't be asking, but it's a good thing to know, right? So who knows? Maybe somebody asks you a question. So who wants to give a brief, very short description of software as a service, and just quickly explain what's the difference between that and let's say platform as a service or the others. Claudia, you want to go for that?
I would most likely pass it to someone else to maybe elaborate.
Okay, no problems. Yeah, I mean, Shami is still
To
busy,
my
so maybe
uh,
carry on.
to my understanding, it's that software as a service is service which allows our clients or users to connect and use what do you call cloud-based apps over the internet. So, like any Office tools, for example, you can call SaaS, software as a service, Office 365.
Yeah.
So we can provision to our, for example, I can provision to my colleagues, everything online like Word, Excel, as a software. So me, I don't worry about the update or patch, which Azure takes care of it.
Yep.
So this is
Absolutely.
my understanding.
Yeah, absolutely correct. So what that means is this. So again, remember we're talking about levels of abstraction here. So in the past, it used to be as an IT admin, you're in charge of the hardware, you're in charge of the OS, you're in charge of the application, you're in charge of the services that are running on the application, and stuff like that. So now you can have infrastructure as a service where the abstraction is now you don't care about the hardware. You're not responsible for the hardware, but now you're responsible for the OS, you're still responsible for the application, you're still responsible for the services, But then you can go a level further and go for platform as a service, where now the OS, you don't even care about it. That's abstracted from you, right? And all you care about is you care about your application and you care about the services that you're using the application to provide. That's all you care about. But then you can even go a step further to software as a service, where you don't even care about like the application itself to an extent, you only care about the service. So an illustration, a very good illustration would be something like, let's say Microsoft Intune or SCCM. So you have an organization, you want to be able to deploy applications centrally to your machines. Yeah, you can go to Azure and provision a virtual machine, download configuration manager, a current branch, install it, and then connect VPN to your client and to your sites so that you can start managing it. That's one way to be able to do that. Or you can go, you know what, I don't want to care about upgrading Windows. I want to care about upgrading SCCM application. In other words, you don't even want to care about the application itself. Whenever there's a new update, Microsoft will deliver that update to Intune and then you get it. You don't even want to be concerned about, I have to maintain this application. All you care about is the service. That is software as a service. So basically, they have different levels of abstraction. This one, you have to deal with everything. This one, the hardware is abstracted. This one, the OS and the hardware are abstracted. This one, the OS and the hardware are abstracted. This one, the OS hardware application, they are abstracted. All you care about is the service. Okay. Shami, have you found that yet? Or we come back to it
Yeah,
afterwards?
something is so. I'm just going to paste this link into.
Yep, no problems. Okay, so yeah, Azure services. So this one again, this is just a brief overview of the services, the different services on Azure. They can be in different categories. So you can have some services that are compute related, some services that are networking related. Okay, thanks very much for that. Let's open this up. Let's have a look. So I'll expand this a bit. Yeah, carry on, Shami.
Okay, so if you go down to zone redundant storage there, it talks about the copies of data.
Mhm.
So it says that zone redundant storage
Yep,
copies.
yep.
I'm sorry, it's replicated 3 times across 2 or 3 facilities. Either, so facilities is the keyword that I see as in a location and such. Either we're in a single region or across 2 regions. So a region, we talked about a region before and we said, okay, a region is a particular location. So if we go back onto that,
No, so what we talked about, this is what we talked about. We talked about some regions have more than one data center, but the regions that have more than one data centers, you can identify them from here. But some regions have only one data center. Like East US and this is East US region. So for example, if I go on portal.azure.com and if I want to provision a service, it's not going to ask me, do you want East US or East US 2? It's not going to give me the option. It's only going to say East US. So if I go, if this one comes up really quickly, and if I go new, and let's just select the most basic one, which is a new virtual machine. And if I go for new, come on, new compute, server 2012, create that. And then it brings me to the option where I can create this. And then I'll just give it the name because what I care about is the region for now. Okay, the location. So when it's giving me, oh, okay, actually it does. It does 100%.
yeah. So that's it there. That the region is a particular location, and so within let's say the East US, for example, that's talking about 2 different regions within the same city. But each region itself might have multiple locations or multiple facilities. And the facilities themselves, they could be right next to each other. It could be 2 different data center rooms as such. And that could be classed as facility 1 being room A and facility 2 being room B, or a mile away or 5 miles away as such.
Yeah, I think
My
yeah.
understanding.
Yeah, okay. I think I accept your explanation. Yeah, okay. Close to carry on, Sheikh.
I just did a search and found Windows Azure Data Center. I mean, it might be old or new, but it's data center locations in Google.
Yeah.
So I just zoomed into Japan, and there are the data centers in the left, and it's straight away points to a building here.
Can you put can you post the link? If you post the link in the chat window, so I can open it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, thanks.
I'm on it.
So
hold on a minute.
Yeah, no problems. So you know where the chat window is on the right hand side?
Yeah. The one which I was browsing is in my desktop, so I'm just
okay, I see.
browsing it in the lab.
Yeah, no problems.
Because that doesn't have the voice.
Yep. No problems. Okay.
I'm on it.
Yeah. So once you post it, and then I'll share it, and then we'll have a look at that. Okay. So let's move to this one. So where we have the different Azure services, and the different classifications for those services, where some. Okay. Thanks very much. So let's open that. So these are Azure data centers.
Yep.
So for example, so does this mean, so is this what Loshami means that, for example, they've got data center in California? That doesn't mean it's one facility. It could be multiple data centers.
Could be, yeah.
So I guess maybe looking at this picture, I guess if you look at the hierarchy, maybe data center will be the top, and then locations will be under that. So within a data center, under a data center, you have the region. I'm sorry, yes, the region perhaps, which will be then, the physical location of the hubs data centers.
Yeah.
Or the branch data centers.
Oh, so okay. Here's the thing. Here's the other question. Here's the question I have, Shimi. So this region is US, right? It says location, so which means it has a facility here. So does that mean that it's got multiple facilities all operating as one facility? Because that will essentially mean the same thing.
Yes, yeah. It looks like that, because if you look at one of the Japanese Japan East region,
yeah, it's got 2.
It's spread in 2 cities. Oh, I'm sorry, 2 locations.
Yeah.
And so I'm assuming that region could be equal to maybe data center.
So so basically, not for all of them, but for most of them, region could be almost equal, location could be almost equal to data center, because even if they have multiple facilities, it's operating as a single data center, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Or what do you think, Shami? It doesn't really matter that much. It's just much more. It's just being clear. That's all. It doesn't really make that much difference. Or what we could do is we could all go do proper research about it and then come discuss it next time we have this the next hangout.
I agree. This seems to be a very good topic of concentration.
Well, yeah, what I understand using when we talk about regions, so all we want to know is whenever we provision anything, like whether it's a SaaS or a PaaS, we have to choose the location which is nearest to us. That's it.
Yeah. That you're absolutely
Okay.
right. That's so. Yes. So yes.
Let's just go back.
Yeah. Carry on.
So
Sorry.
if we go back onto that article, I think
This
it
one.
is clear onto the storage one. Yeah. If you just zoom out slightly.
So zoom out. Let's go. This one. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. And if you have a look at local redundant storage.
So Control F. Local. This one.
Okay, cool. So you see that local redundant storage maintains 3 copies of data. LRS is replicated 3 times within a single data center in a single region. Yep. So it's clear, it's telling you that it's only available in that one data center in that location. Okay. And if we go down to geo, or we use zone redundant. So let's take geo, for example. Geo says GRS maintains 6 copies of the data. GRS, your data is replicated 3 times within the primary region, replicate 3 times in the secondary region. Now, what we've had a look at there is that it's telling you that it's replicated 3 times within a primary region. And we know that a region, a location as such. So for me, that's showing you that you could have multiple facilities within that region constitutes a location as such. And you could, the same goes for zone redundant storage as well. If you have a look at that, it talks about ZRS is replicated 3 times across 2 or 3 facilities, either within a single region. So it's telling you there that 2 or 3 facilities either within a single region or across 2 regions. So to me, it seems like they do have multiple facilities within one region.
Yeah, for sure. So you can have a geo that's got. So actually, to mention, because Sheikh mentioned that the main thing that we care whenever we're provisioning is to provision closest to our users, right? But
Yeah,
but
that's
right.
but Sheikh, but
if we have a look at that.
yeah, I would argue that there's probably much more than that. Because here's the thing, is that if you're designing something for a global organization, there's a lot of things that you have to consider. You have to consider security compliance. You have to consider legal compliance also. So if you're referring to legal compliance, it's an absolute must that you have to know where your data lives. Because if your CEO or your CIO comes to you and says, hold on, where is our data stored? Maybe you're going to an audit and they find out that you've designed an infrastructure where your data is stored where it should not be stored, there could be trouble, right?
Of course. And I think that's one of the main reasons
Yeah.
that we now see the UK data center being created. We see a France data center coming online is down to the laws, especially around the financial regulatory laws in the UK.
Yeah.
Data
So
located in country.
So if I'm designing an infrastructure and I select geo redundant, I want to be absolutely sure that my data won't go out of where it should not be staying, so that I know if I'm supposed to select locally, I just select locally and just stay with that. So there's a lot of reasons why this is very important also. So, but yeah, again, I think let's go digest this article. So it's in the chat window. These two links that have been posted, and then I think we can just do a brief 10-15 minutes catch up in the next one. Okay, so moving on now. So now that at least we have a basic understanding of the different services, the infrastructure service, platform as a service, software as a service, and then we understand that Azure itself in the backend is just data centers that are interconnected by really, really powerful network connections with really, really powerful servers in form of containers being shipped to them all the time. And that's all there is in the backend. And we have different layers of abstractions and all that. So now that we have that basic understanding, we can move forward to the other thing that they want us to do in this module of introduction to Azure, which is managing Azure. So in terms of managing Azure, there are a few things that we need to get down. So there are different methods that we can use when we're managing Azure. We won't go through the old boring stuff of saying, yeah, you can log into the Azure portal. Most people will be aware of that, right? At least all of us on this call know that whenever you want to manage Azure, you can you can manage Azure using something called the Azure portal, but that's not where we're gonna stay on today. I need the okay, here we go. Let's move this one to 22. Okay, what we're gonna go on today is when you're managing Azure or managing Azure. Number one, we can use the portal, and we know that there are two types of portals or two portals. There is a portal which is going away, which we know, which is the classic one, and that is manage.windowsazure.com. And then there is the new portal, which is the portal.azure.com. So we know that is available to us. And we also know that there's PowerShell. So can somebody explain, like, in terms of PowerShell, are there two PowerShells also? Are there multiple PowerShells? Is it just one PowerShell?
There's two different types of PowerShell commandlets
Yep.
to manage the classic and the ARM.
Yep. Classic PowerShell basically, and then the PowerShell. And I'm going somewhere. Which other methods do we have when we're managing Azure? So carry on. Sheik and Claudia, want to add anything? What other methods do we have?
If it is PowerShell, there is a set of commands for PowerShell when we manage Classic, and for for ARM, we need to add RM between the the commands, PowerShell commands, which I saw and practiced.
Yep. And so what? Yeah. So we have the portal. We have two portals. We have classic and new portal. We have PowerShell. We have classic PowerShell. We have ARM PowerShell. So what other methods do we have when we want to manage Azure? Management means you want to deploy something to Azure, you want to delete a deployment, you want to modify a deployment, you want to, upgrade a service, whatever you're doing, your interaction as an administrator with Azure, what methods do you have? We've forgotten the CLI.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other thing apart from the CLI? What else? Visual.
Yeah, basic. Yeah, Visual Basic Studio.
Visual Studio. So the reason why this one is important, I'll tell you. The reason why this one is important is, Claudia, you can see right on that this is going to be a heavy course, right? Because here's the thing. Sheikh, I just did my 75033 exam. I passed that. I did the 70534 exam. I failed that. But I tell you one thing. One of the things that makes this course really, really taxing is the fact that there's so many ways to manage things, and they can ask you question on any one of these. So they can ask you question that has to do with the classic portal. They can ask you question that has to do with the new portal. They can ask you question that has to do with classic PowerShell or ARM PowerShell. They can ask you questions that has to do with the CLI. They can ask you questions that has to do with Visual Studio, and you're expected to know everything. So which is one of the reasons why in this course, we're not just going to be doing like the basic thing that we did in the classroom when I did the course. What we're going to be doing, because I wish my instructor, when they did this was how they taught me, because I had to teach myself this way, was to say, okay, here is Azure networking. Here is how to do Azure networking from the classic portal. Here are the different ways you can do it via the classic portal. Here's how to do it via the new portal. Even though the classic portal, it's something that they said would die, right? But it's not. It's been like 4 or 5 years that they've been saying it's gonna die. It's still not dead. And they're still
is that right?
yeah, and they're still asking questions about it.
No, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, carry on.
This 7533 exam
Yeah,
and all the Azure exams are already got the refresh. They
22.
revamped it
Yeah, on the 22nd.
22nd,
Yeah. So
but they are not asking classic anymore. This is what I saw in the
is
forums.
that what they said, that they are absolutely not going to do classic anymore? Is that what they
I
absolutely said? Because the only thing I read was we're going to do a refresh, but what they said was we're going to be including more new portal, more PowerShell. That's what I read. I didn't read that we're not going to be asking classic anymore. I did not read that. So Azure exam refresh. Because I saw the communication and I went through it, and that was why. But maybe I've read it wrong. Um, um,
when I see, as you said, in the Azure portal, we can see virtual machines, cloud services, and storage accounts.
mhm.
They are classified as classic right now. We can manage them here,
Yeah,
but eventually they are going to drop out soon.
yeah,
We are going to handle it in the ARM portal only.
yeah. That is absolutely true. Soon. The soon is the thing that I'm not sure because they've been saying soon for the past 5 years, right? They've been saying it's
Yeah,
gonna go soon. It's like which other one? There's a particular technology that people have been saying, yeah, it's
yeah,
gonna go very
still,
soon.
that's right. Because if it's Microsoft, still 2003 is running server. 2003 server
Yeah,
is still running in the
yeah.
data centers.
And then the worst thing is that they're still asking questions about it. So
Mm.
in any way, so maybe if I read the communication where they say we are gonna stop this, the plan that I have for this hangout is that when next week, because the next week, the next module that they have is on, let's go for this one. What's the next module? I think the next module is networking. So when we do networking, when we're going to be doing it a completely different way. So next one is implementing and managing Azure networking is module 2. So when we're doing this, we're going to be covering how to do this from the portal. And there are different ways. There are some things that you can achieve in Classic that you cannot achieve in new portal still. So we're going to talk about it from this standpoint, and from classic PowerShell standpoint, and from ARM PowerShell standpoint, and from CLI standpoint, and from Visual Studio standpoint, because they could ask you questions from any of this. So that's why this course is so vast. It's because of these different management methods. So one of the things that I'll probably encourage to do is that if you don't already, go ahead and look up Microsoft Web Platform Installer. So just Google it, web platform installer. Um, let's go web platform installer. Just Google it and download it and install it on your machine or whatever machine you're going to be using installing for this course. I think I already have it on this one, web platform installer. So I have it on this one. And after it downloads, basically it gives you a single place where you can download and install a lot of these tools. So if it comes up and yep, so here we go. So download and install this, and from here um, you can install the Azure PowerShell commandlet. So I can go, for example, this one, they've got a new version, and which I don't have already. I can go to add there. I can go to install. So if you have Visual Studio on your machine, which I will absolutely recommend, for you to be able to manage Azure via Visual Studio, you need the Visual Studio Azure SDK installed. So whatever version of Visual Studio that you have, I think I've got two versions on mine. I've got 2013 and 2015. So I've got 2015, for example, I can click on this one and add the SDK because that will now allow me to be able to use Visual Studio to manage Azure, which is very important when you're talking about the ARM, which we'll get to. And like this one, if I've got 2013, you want Azure SDK for 2013, whichever one. So you want that. And and then this is the CLI tools, the cross-platform tool. The CLI tool, the main difference is PowerShell is mainly now it's on Linux, right? But I'm not too familiar. Anyone familiar with PowerShell on Linux? Have you used it at all? Has anyone used PowerShell on Linux yet? Because Microsoft released
No, not
PowerShell to
yet.
Linux recently, yeah. So, but you're aware that they
This
released
one,
it to Linux. Carry on, sorry.
I'm sorry. as you said, Visual Studio.
Yeah.
For example, a Visual Studio is developer oriented. I am an IT professional, so do I
Oh,
have to
just come for this hangout. Your mindset will change. Just
yeah, do I
seriously,
have to because
absolutely.
I think of PowerShell more. I'm thinking
Oh,
of
your
learning more
mindset
PowerShell.
will so change. Just wait till we start doing this. Your mindset will so change.
Really?
The question that you asked is the question I was asking maybe 7 months ago. Your mindset will so change when you see the integration of Visual Studio. I
Uh,
watched, that was like many months ago, I watched the Pluralsight video
yes,
because I have a
I did
Pluralsight
watch that.
subscription, and the guy kept saying, "You've got to," and I was like, "What's this guy talking about?" Right?
Uh,
Then I
I, I
downloaded.
I skipped the video basically for
Oh,
this
oh, believe me.
because I don't like Visual Studio because I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah,
It's
you
coding.
you see, there's a lot of example. Like there was one that I wrote where it just does. It has a lot much more integration than you could achieve with PowerShell, especially when you're referring to ARM templates, when you're referring to the ARM
Yes,
deployment. You
that's right.
the Visual Studio,
Template.
it's just like talking about a Swiss Army knife and just a normal knife. You can achieve so much more, and we get there. I even think I have like some videos about this already, where I think if I go to this one and I go to because I was doing an automation task about um Sophos Azure Sophos XG firewall on Azure using the declarative mode. Is it this one? Yeah, I think this one. And Visual Studio, man. When I was doing this deployment, Visual Studio was amazing. It was super, super amazing in terms of when you're actually building the templates. Is it this one or the other one? And then you see, like, when you're actually building the template, you see the flexibility that it brings. Okay, that's not okay. Yeah, but believe me, your mindset will change. You really need this. If you're going to be doing ARM deployment, you're not going to be doing classic deployment. By the way, that's a good one that we should probably point out before we call it a day today. So, um, it's a good one to point out. So, there's a lot of things, right? You want to deploy something to Azure. You can use classic PowerShell, you can use ARM PowerShell, or you can use Visual Studio with ARM deployment to achieve the same thing. Um, the thing is, if you use classic PowerShell or ARM PowerShell, it is so slow in terms of deployment time compared to if you do ARM deployment. But still, you can achieve the same thing in 5 different ways, or at least 5 different ways, or 6 different ways when you're talking about Azure, which is why we'll have to cover this. Okay, so what else are we supposed to cover? So they said the final thing that we're going to be covering today, so they said overview of Azure Portal. I don't think we need to be doing overview of Azure Portal. I think just play around with it, you'll get it. Um, Overview of Azure Resource Manager. Okay, so let's do this one. And then maybe we'll call it a day. Overview of Azure Resource Manager. So does somebody want to give us a good explanation of when we say Azure Resource Manager compared to Azure Classic Manager, what are we referring to? I know Shami wants to answer that question for us.
I'm staying quiet.
What's that?
Easy question goes to Shami.
Yeah, question goes to Shami. So when we're talking about ARM, so because part of this module, we have to do an overview of Azure Resource Manager, which is ARM. So
What I saw in the Pluralsight video, the instructor explains about it is, so Microsoft started this public cloud and this technology, the Azure technology,
yep.
From the classic Azure portal. So eventually they added the what they call the blades, each and everything. Like for example, virtual machine, for cloud service and app service, everything.
Yeah.
So it eventually grown up and it became a really messy. So they brought up the ARM portal, which is they call as blades, and they call as a journey, like one by one, step by step, to finish things, and easy going.
Mm-hmm.
So they are completely jumping to this model, and ARM is in. I saw it's in ASM. I mean, Service Manager, the classic, is in ASP or .NET. I don't know that technology. And this one is JSON, JavaScript.
So this
object
one,
notation.
ASM is in XML.
Yeah. Oh, XML. Yeah. And ARM is in JSON, right? The JavaScript
Yep.
object notation coding or something.
Yeah.
I hate coding, by the way.
JavaScript object notation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's
I
good.
like
Yeah.
I like clicks instead of typing.
Okay.
I think I need to learn Visual Studio, but
You don't need
when
to
I
learn,
saw,
you don't need to learn Visual Studio. Believe me, you're not dealing with
I-
Visual Studio. You're only dealing
that's
with,
correct.
you're only going to be
As-
dealing with templates.
Only with templates we are going to use Visual Studio. Otherwise,
Yep.
we can use PowerShell, right?
Yeah,
Is
that's
that
right. But then you
oh,
see the difference between using a template, which is ARM, versus using just PowerShell. There's a big difference.
okay.
Okay.
I'm seeing.
What about Shami? How would you explain differences between ARM and ASM?
I think she's spot on with the whole XML and JSON stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they also, with the classic portal, there was limitations on what
Excellent.
you could do and the granular level of access you
Mm-hmm.
could grant users. There was only 3 types
Mm-hmm.
of access. There was, I think it was
Yeah.
service owner, a co-owner,
Mm-hmm.
and the third one is security or read only. But now you've got a lot more granular in the on portal, which is a level of permissions you can give users, and you can assign a container like a resource group.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say if a particular kind of environment is all related, say virtual machine,
Mm-hmm.
storage, and web apps, that could all be contained within
Oh, you're breaking
a
out.
say, okay, this is who has access to it, but also permissions to the level of saying, okay, certain types of instances on this resource group. It allows you to add tagging as well
Yep.
on there now. So on the ARM portal, you can add tagging for billing purposes.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yep, you can. Hello, can you hear me? I can hear you. We can hear you.
Yep. So I think that's the big difference between ARM and ASM.
Yeah.
It seems like ASM was when Microsoft initially were rolling it out there, and they wanted to get into the cloud space, and they wanted to get something quickly available, and they wanted to give options to people. But then they saw that more people were taking up on this, and they took what they were saying and said, okay, we now need to move into this. We migrated from the ASM environment to the ARM environment, and there was a lot of change.
Mm-hmm.
Also, one of the things reminding to add is any new services which are available through the Azure portal are all ARM, the technology on the underground, so JSON technology,
Mm-hmm.
whereas previously it was the XML, ASM.
Yeah. Excellent. Very good. Very good. Thanks. And is there anything that you want to add, Claude, to that? There's still, even though they've all covered like really important, there's still a very, very vital difference that's missing. So Claude, I'm looking up to you, man.
One thing that I know is that the ASM is the old,
Yep.
well, the initial way,
Yep.
and our ARM is the pretty much the new implementation.
Mm-hmm.
I know I read something about the APIs, but I just don't remember what it was.
Yeah. Yeah, right. But here's one big thing. Here's one big thing that's been missed out. Declarative versus imperative.
Is it an English class?
Does anyone know? No, so does anyone know what this means?
No.
Declarative versus imperative.
No, I think I have to complain to plural side that they didn't teach me this.
They've only mentioned, here's one thing. Go to declarative versus imperative. So this is
Sentence.
something that has existed in-house before, but it's like a programming term but has been brought into IET Pro, but they've brought it also to Azure with ARM. Is, for example, on premises, if you want to deploy a Microsoft Hyper-V server, 2012 server, you can do it two ways. You can do it via PowerShell scripting, right? So you can do it more than two ways. You can do it via PowerShell scripting, but one other way that you can do it is something called PowerShell DSC, PowerShell Desired State Configuration. And the difference between this one and this one is imperative, and I'll explain. And just Google that and just read about it, why this one is declarative. And I'll explain what that means. So what that means is that before, if you wanted to automate something in Azure Service Manager, the only option you've got is an imperative module. What does that mean? Let's open this one. So you're doing an ASM deployment and you want to automate the building of a server 2016 machine. You have to go, what do I need? I need the machine information. I need a network interface card and that is going to be connected to. I need the network interface card to be connected to a subnet. I need the subnet to be connected to a virtual network. And a lot of stuff, and you list all those things. And now you have to start describing this one by one. You have to start going new Azure VNet, name, whatever, location, whatever, cloud service, whatever. So you start describing this one by one. And you describe the virtual network, and then you describe new Azure subnet, and then you describe the new Azure VNIC, and then you attach the VNIC to the machine. This is what they call imperative deployment, which is the only option that you have if you're using ASM, imperative, where you have to do a line-by-line scripting. The issue with that is if something were to change, you may have to rewrite your entire script. What they've now brought in with ARM is with ARM, you want to automate something, you have two options now. You can still use the imperative mode, which is the one that Sheikh mentioned, where you just put ARM in front of the commandlet, right? You can still use that imperative mode, or you can use a new mode called the declarative mode. And declarative mode is where I'm not going to start describing and saying, oh, I want new virtual machine, this one. I want to create a NIC after that, and I want to attack. I don't have to start declaring line by line. All I have to say is I write a template, which is where the templates come in. And I say to a template, I want a machine that's running Server 2012. I want it to have IaaS installed. I want it to have two NICs. I want the NICs to be connected to a subnet name, new subnet, and deploy. And the machine itself will take all this information and figure out how to add an IaaS server, figure out how to create two NICs, figure out how to create a subnet. All I have to do is declare what I want, and the machine takes the line-by-line scripting work. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's right. And when something goes wrong, I think it will go through the first, second, third, and pick it up from where it left, I think.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Does that make sense at all, Shemi and Claudia? Does that make sense? Even though I know you may not get it all at once, but at least do you get the idea?
Yes.
Yeah. So so with ASM, the only option that you have is this imperative mode. You have to describe everything in details line by line. You have to go new this one, you have to learn a lot of, with this one, you don't even have to learn the commandlets, even though you have to learn them for your exam. All you need to know how to build the template. For example, you don't need to start going install IaaS service. All I need to do is I'm filling in a field in a template and I'm saying I want IaaS on this server. And the machine itself will figure out how to get IaaS on the server. So that's one big difference. Even though you can still use the imperative mode if you want to with ARM, you have a new option now of the declarative mode. So we'll also be talking about that. And I think that's where, so I encourage you just Google declarative versus imperative. So for example, if I go on this one, declarative versus imperative, and see, so it used to be a programming term, but it's much more an IT pro term, PowerShell or Azure. Yeah. So a memorandum to IT pros on Interact. Let's have a quick look at this one, and then we'll call it a day. So So you can see one noticeable difference of Azure Infrastructure as a Service, which is ARM version 2 from version 1, which is ASM, is the implement of Azure Resource Group templates, and then imperative versus declarative. Traditionally, within a logical unit of work, the conventional wisdom is to define how to implement the business logic. What it basically means is that you have to go line by line. You have to go this one. Wait 30 seconds, check the SQL Server status till it's up and running. After you finish, so you have to declare this by yourself line by line. So you have to declare how to do it. So you know what you want, but you have to declare how to do it. But declarative, you only have to declare what you want. So, and then that is one of the huge difference, even though that explanation wasn't that great. But okay, yeah. Yeah, sadly, you probably encountered the definition similar. You know, imperative programming is like how you do something, and declarative programming is more like what you do or something. Yeah. So I hope that makes a little bit of sense to you. Yeah, so finally, we just do any questions or any more contributions that we want to add, and then we'll call it a day for today. Any questions or contributions, Claudia or Shami or Sheikh? Anything? Any questions on what we've discussed so far?
No.
No, nothing?
Sounds good.
Oh, good.
Nothing.
Okay then. Okay. Okay. So next week we'll pick up from where we're stopping from here next week, and then we'll pick up with Azure networking. So as mentioned, we'll be discussing Azure networking in very, very good details. We'll be going into even things that are not covered in here because we want to go into how do you achieve this in classic? What's the difference? Because in classic model, if you're talking about classic mode in Azure, you can have networking three different ways. You can have a cloud service, you can have a virtual network, you can have a cloud service, you can have a virtual network, you can have one that's not even linked to a cloud service. So three ways. Whereas in Azure, in the new Azure portal, you have two ways that you can achieve that. And then it's gonna go into details about, because again, if you want to, it's like what we mentioned, you want to deploy a virtual network into Azure, you can, if you want to, you can go to classic mode and use imperative. If you want to script it, use imperative. You can go the ARM mode and use imperative. If you want to script it, you can go to ARM mode and use a template using Visual Studio if you want to script it. So there are different ways that we can achieve this. You can use the CLI and then we'll go through and we'll cover all these different aspects. Okay then, thanks very much guys, and then we'll see next week. So I'll send the invite out as soon as possible. And then we can catch up
And
again. Yeah, carry on. Sorry.
yeah, it's Yeah, and Claude and Shami also finished 7533.
No, I'm
No,
looking
not
to
yet.
take the exam, but
Yeah,
after you guys are telling me that it's just been revamped,
yeah,
I need to do some more studying.
yeah. I want to share. I think you guys know about the Microsoft Association of Practicing Architects.
No.
So when we register with that, there is that is a Microsoft Association of Practicing Architects. It's called MAPA. They are enforcing a MAPA champs. I will paste the link now.
Okay.
In that, they have the Azure champs and Office 365 champs and Enterprise Mobility champs. So when we take Azure champs, they are giving. We have to take one by one, like 532, 533, 534, anything, anywhere around we can pick it up and take. So they are giving exam resources, that is exam reference material and measure up test and exam voucher free of cost.
So that is Microsoft's association of this one.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah,
I've never ever heard of it before.
This is through this I took the 533 and it was quick. What we have to do is you can see the MAPA champs over there, right? But you have to register. Just register using a professional ID. That means your Office ID. You have to submit your Office register with Office ID and your Gmail. Not a problem. So they will send a verification link for professional ID, and just you have to verify that link. From there on, they will, for example, 533. When I choose, I have to finish a video course in Microsoft Virtual Academy. There is one course which we do, right? So that course is like 3 hours. So after finishing Microsoft Virtual Academy course, we have to download the transcript as a PDF and upload it here. And the next day we will get the materials and the vouchers and the measure up. And the measure up exam is awesome. I think it covers the actual exam. I think so, because that was awesome. Measure Up is a partner of MindHub, and you know about that. So they have all these accesses for the professional, like organizations on stuff. So you guys can utilize that.
Awesome. I never knew about that. I'll definitely be registering for it. Thanks very much for that. That was very, very useful.
I'm registering as soon as we finish. I'm registering.
I am also. I think so. I think I will definitely register for this as soon as we finish.
Yeah.
So thank
the Microsoft Virtual Academy, the video is also educational. It's like, yeah, it's a good one. After this, they will give it off. That's the thing.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice one, man. Nice one. Thanks very much. Okay, no problems. Yeah. So see you next time, and have a wonderful weekend. Okay, bye for now.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye.